Celtic find themselves back at Celtic Park for the first time in 2025 as we get set to face St Mirren in Matchday 20 of this season's Scottish Premiership. This is Tino with the Countdown to Kick-Off show, joined here for the first time in the new year by Brydo. Brydo, welcome back to the show. What's your initial thoughts ahead of this one?
Happy New Year, mate. I don't know when we stop saying that. Hopefully soon. Great to be back on. And feelings are obviously still a wee bit... I wouldn't say crazy hurting after the game at Ibrox, but it's a reset button maybe. Obviously still talk about it and assess it a wee bit, but we've got to keep looking forward. And I think there'll be a few changes, and I think there's needed to be a few changes, but it's almost a reset button, maybe similar to the Dortmund situation where you just got to go, right, what did we get right, what did we get wrong, and let's balance it out and try and keep moving forward. What we can't do is forget about how well we have done in all competitions so far this season. So it's trying to do it with that kind of balance as opposed to just, being angry and frustrated and all the other emotions that come with a 3-0 defeat at Ibrox.
This is where I've got to, Brydo, because it's okay and it's right to be critical of what was a really poor performance. There's no dressing up. Really poor at Ibrox on Thursday. So there's criticism from various quarters on that, whether it was the lineup, the tactics, the manager, the lack of willingness to change, whatever, the lack of plan B. And I'll maybe ask you about that in a wee bit. So all of those things are valid. There's definitely a place for that. There's also a huge place for the credit in the bank that a team who have now lost just their second game of the season, we only lost 2 in the whole of 2024 across all competitions. And we're sweeping up trophies during that time. And I think you've got to, allow that credit to the manager and the players. But Celtic are Celtic, and we all know as well, you can't stand still. And if you, stand for too long and admire what you've done, then, people will catch up on you, and that's where you start to come unstuck. So everything's valid, but I do think we need to give credit for what the players have achieved so far, whilst between us, as best we can over the next half hour or so, looking ahead to how do we respond to this? How do you respond to such a fairly comprehensive defeat, and how do you then move forward and take it into what's ahead? Let me ask you on the plan B, just while it's fresh in my head. I was just having a wee debate with someone on Twitter before we came on. The Walking Tim is the account on Twitter, and he was saying, among some other things, what is the plan B? We've not learned from Zagreb and Bruges and Dundee United in the League Cup final and these things. Now, people have given a lot of these examples and a lot of these games. While Celtic have won the majority of those games, we've won a trophy within one of them. We've progressed in Europe. You don't need to beat Bruges and Zagreb. A point at these venues is good, and it allows you to kind of take a small but notable step forward in terms of what we're trying to achieve in Europe. But in terms of plan B, my general take on that, and it's maybe my simplistic viewpoint, is that Celtic do rely heavily on our wingers. It's part of Brendan Rodgers' system. And Maeda and Kuhn, particularly Kuhn, have been so impressive this season. I think they're our top 2 scorers. I think Kuhn's got 14 and Maeda 13, something like that. They're leading the charge, and then Kyogo's a bit further down with 8 and whatever else falls behind that. So we do rely heavily on our front 3, but particularly the wingers. But if the ball is not getting to the wingers, and it wasn't getting to them enough at Ibrox, do we lack a plan B? We asked the question about Celtic not having a number 10. It's not how we play. But sometimes you do need to get through the middle if it's not working out wide. And I wonder if we do lack a creative force in there. But what's your general thoughts on all of that?
I think it's obviously different. We face challenges domestically, and we face challenges in Europe, and it's quite good to then see how we adapt to each of those challenges. Leipzig, we adapted very, very well. Bruges, first half, not so well. Second half, far better. And it's. I think there's some small changes that the manager does make in game, and then if we were to compare, say, the cup final performance and then the performance on Thursday, for me anyway, Celtic is, first of all, I need to make this clear anyway, it's far easier to play Rangers tactics than they were Celtic tactics. Rangers are playing to make a team make mistakes. Don't get me wrong, it's a lot of hard work, and they've done it very, very well. And they did it in the cup final well too, for large periods. To be the team that's proactively trying to create all the time, it is harder, but we have the better players, and that's how we play. To get Callum McGregor into any game, he has to, I think anyway, I felt like Callum McGregor wasn't doing enough in the game on Thursday. I get we set up a certain way, and then the game doesn't necessarily flow the way we want it. I fully expect a guy like Callum McGregor's intelligence and stuff to find a way of getting into the game. And I feel like he's maybe got to just drop out of that space and perhaps even just drop and split the two centre halves, for example. And that might allow your two fullbacks to get further away from Callum McGregor. Rangers wanted that ball in the middle and we just kept putting it in. Like, we just kept doing the same thing. And the Rangers players are close together. So Czerny, Igamani, Barami, Hadji, those four, they're essentially a diamond around McGregor. So he's kind of cornered out. And I just feel like, just take yourself out. Maybe another midfielder just drops in a wee bit. And not only does that then create the space, and like you said, play with number 10, well, Rio Hatate could quite easily have played almost like a number 10 in that space. It's been vacated. And I just think that would have been, whether it worked or not, remains to be seen. But for me to just continue to do the same thing, that isn't an option. It shouldn't be an option. We stopped the inverted fullbacks because in the cup final, we seen Taylor tucking inside, and all he done was drag Czerny closer to McGregor. We don't want Greg Taylor in the bottom of the park. We want Callum McGregor, Bernardo and Hatate to get the ball. And you made a good point. Our most kind of influential players are our wingers. And Celtic are very, very deliberate that we get the ball and we try to get the ball to Kuhn's feet and we try to get the ball to Mida's feet. It's fairly obvious. So maybe it's fairly obviously easy to stop. So for me anyway, there's got to be a change in that middle of the park if there's a game like that. And it doesn't have to be the full game. If McGregor drops and they want to go man for man, let's see if they've got the bottle to follow him when he's deeper and just shake it up a bit. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And I just felt like we didn't do anything. They just kept doing the same thing. And with the exception of a period, I don't know, 10 minutes in the second half, round about when Kyogo's goal got disallowed. Other than that, we just didn't do it. We started to get space when they tired, similar to the cup final. But even when he got the ball, Hatate, I mean, Scales had a shocker, but Hatate was worse for me. So in those positions, you just didn't do it. So tactically, I thought we were a wee bit short, but performance-wise, we were even shorter. And so it doesn't really matter what you do, I suppose. But we do need a plan B for sure. And I think it needs to be considerably different to what we've seen in the games that we've kind of faltered in.
Yeah, and there's one thing. There was lots of calls during the first half. We're all in WhatsApp groups and whatever else. There's lots of calls that after half an hour you need to change it, take out Scales, take out Hatate, take out whatever. I spoke to Paddy yesterday. We done the kind of post match. I don't think it's a good idea for Celtic to be replacing personnel during our first half, because that in itself would give the home crowd a lift, and it's damaging to a player's confidence. You need to be very careful with that. But in a large part, just so you put in Trusty for Scales, if the movement's not there ahead of Trusty in the second half, then the same problems persist, regardless who it is, albeit Scales did have a poor game and gave it away a number of times. But my point is that the system wasn't great, and there's no great point in putting new players into the same system. It was the old saying about moving the deck chairs around the Titanic and all that stuff. It doesn't really make a difference if you're not going to change things overall. So that would be a thing for me. But I do think throughout the 90 minutes plus whatever injury time there was, we didn't change the system at any point. So the system that wasn't working for 30, 45, 60, 70 minutes, at no point did we then switch it up. Even somebody made the good point, clipping a few balls in over the fullbacks into those areas might have been even just a nice wee bit of variety to shake it up and to give Chefche and Ridvan something else to think about. They had a really, really easy game, particularly Gollan, given that Ridvan is a left back playing at right back. We allowed him to have a really good game, and I don't think there's any excuse for that, is there?
No, there's none. And again, that could be a very slight tactical change. It's nothing major. Nobody's saying play three at the back and or let's play Ida and Kyogo up front together and think, no, that's not what anybody. It's not even that big. It's small things within the game. I just feel we didn't do it. When you're under pressure or whatever, there's nothing wrong with dropping a ball in behind, especially with the speed of Kyogo, Kuhn and Maida. Everybody's played at any form of defensive football. The last thing you want to be playing against is pace, who's running in behind. I just didn't think we got to the positions in the park to even play those passes at times. But sometimes for me anyway, Johnson and Taylor, for example, there's nothing wrong with clip the ball over the top of a defender's head. The worst case you normally get is a throw in the final third of the park, of which you can then maybe go and try and play your football. But I just felt that we were trying to get from A to B far too quickly, but bizarrely doing it really slowly. Because Scales is like, they're looking for that pass all the time, like in between, and Rangers screened it very well. And even if it did make it, the touch wasn't great, as I alluded to earlier. But if I'm Scales, from now on, if he ever plays, which he should, there's not, listen, he's never playing for Celtic again. But if he's playing and he's in a position when he takes more than 3 touches at any given time, there's a problem.
Yeah,
there's a problem. Give it to somebody and get it back. But dribbling the ball out the park, almost that once image or 10 seconds of him running the ball out the park epitomised exactly what he done for pretty much the whole game. And it just showed maybe his lack of confidence or whatever within the period of the game. But you're right. I mean, just change it up a wee bit. But there's nothing surprising with Rangers play. They play the exact same way 2 weeks ago. So that's then the question marks for that game, not the whole season. But the question marks have to go on the manager as well. That he's tactically not changed it that much, with the exception of stopping the fullbacks tucking in. That's all he done. And to me, that's not good enough. You've got to have a few more ideas than that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Tell you what we'll do, Brydo. For now, then we'll put that behind us. We'll try and move on here from Thursday. Frustrating as it was, but there's so much ahead for Celtic this season. So much to look forward to. We're now on Matchday 20 of 38. There's Scottish Cup in a couple of weeks' time against Kilmarnock. There's big Champions League stuff against Young Boys and Villa both this month. So plenty to look forward to. The important thing is that Brendan Rodgers does react and respond and make tweaks. He made tweaks, notably after Dortmund and before Atalanta, and it paid dividends, and it was a good sign of the maturity within the squad and the adaptability that the manager can show. Adaptability? Don't know. It's been a long January so far. But there's changes that can be made and should be made, and there's so much to look forward to, and I hope the manager does embrace that. Before we crack on, Bride, I want to say a quick hello to Mick Devlin, Mick of Redemption Fitness. I've not spoken to Mick in a while, but I've seen him just join the live there, so good to see him and hope he's doing well. Likewise, thanks to everyone who continues to join us here on the live. Happy New Year to Paul Allen, Anthony Aitken, Steve Letford and others who are joining us at this moment in time. Bride, let's look ahead, as I say. St Mirren coming up tomorrow, 3 o'clock kick-off at Celtic Park. They've had an interesting time over the festive period. They got their big win against Rangers and then went and lost next time out. But as we've seen, and I'm sure we've all watched their goals against Rangers, they've got players in the locker that can cause damage at times. However, the huge advantage for Celtic is we're back on home turf. We've won 4-0 twice on the bounce there in recent times. So how do you see this playing out generally, and how do you see St Mirren approaching it? I
think St Mirren will do what they always try to do at Celtic Park, and obviously Robinson, I think he's a really good manager. I think he's always got results wherever he's been. The guy Olatanya up front causes a lot of problems. He's kind of running in behind. They'll try to play on that wherever they can. If they get a wee breakaway, they've got some technically good players as well. But I don't think they'll see enough of the ball to impact us that much, to be perfectly honest with you. Their home form is pretty decent. Obviously, you touched on their win against Rangers. They've then lost against Dundee and then Hibs since then. So they kind of ruined their good work with that by getting defeats against those two. So, yeah, I expect Celtic to get the points. But I do expect St Mirren it'll be a reasonable test, a reasonable test. But I think it's a test of the temperament and the mentality of the players, who I'd like to think are hurting, obviously, after a bad defeat. And I'd also like to see the players, if we'll suggest changes maybe, and if the manager follows suit with that, then I'd like to see those players coming in and show real aggression and demand to grab a jersey or two, and tell the players who didn't perform, doesn't matter how long you've been here or how well you've done, I'm now really, really pushing you for that position. So it's an opportunity for players, I think, after a game like that, to come into a game like St Mirren at home, to get your confidence up, show your character, express yourself on the park and get a good performance and a good win.
Yeah, and the old saying about you're only as good as your last game. We weren't very good in our last game, so there's a big challenge to the various guys to step up. Brydo, I mentioned that this is our second game of January, a month in which we'll play 9 games in total across 3 competitions: League, Scottish Cup, Champions League. And within that, you have to rotate, and sometimes rotation is what causes inconsistency and maybe some of the ups and downs we've seen in recent weeks. Some performances have been good, some not so good. Obviously, there was frustration at Dundee United, for example. And it's actually been quite a while, I think, since Celtic have put in a complete 90 minutes. Now, sometimes I think some people get a wee bit too excited at half-time if we're drawing nothing each, or maybe even only winning 1-0. But the game does last 90 minutes, and you need to give the squad and the manager time to go and do what they need to do across the full game. But that full performance has been missing, and we can hark back to Aberdeen in the semi-final at Hampden and Leipzig and a few others. And it'd be good to see that coming back, but he will have to change it. I was going to ask you the question, will he make changes? He has to, whether it's tomorrow or in the few days ahead. Tomorrow is the first of 4 games in 9 days. Between now and next Tuesday, we play 4 league games. That's a challenge in itself. St Mirren at home, Dundee United at home, Ross County away, and then Dundee away. So the question would be, he will make changes, but will it be tomorrow? Or do you think he'll give the guys that started, by and large at Ibrox, the chance to redeem themselves?
Oh no, he'll make changes tomorrow, mate. He'll definitely make changes tomorrow. Of that, I've pretty much no doubt. I think he's got to send a message, really. I know. Again, this is all about perspective. It's one game, we've lost, but there are ways to win and there's ways to lose. You win with a bit of humility, and and shake the other team's hand and say thanks for turning up, no matter how much you win by. There's also a way to lose. I watched Tottenham get beat today off Newcastle, for example, and they gave it their all, and they challenged and they battered it and they threw balls in the box, and they were competitive. We didn't lay a glove on them, so he has to make changes in whatever positions he sees fit or whatever's available. So I fully expect there to be changes tomorrow. This season more than any, I think Rodgers has actually used a squad far more than he has in previous times. I think we'd all agree with that. But it's because he's got the quality there and that he can do that. So when he takes one out, he's getting the same level of quality, sometimes better, going back in. So I fully expect there to be a number of changes. But you're right, the other players will come in, and because there's so many games in such a tight space of time, it's utilising the squad, of which I think he's done really well up until now. In fact, he talked about it last week, didn't he? Prior to the Rangers game, about the need to rotate the squad. And he's doing that. I think he's done it pretty well. I think we've all complimented him on shows like ours a number of times about how well he has used the squad. And I don't see it being any different. And they're taking a hit on Thursday, but they need to bounce back, and he'll do that by making the changes appropriately.
Yeah, and there's a couple of suggestions already in the comments. Mazar has put a team up, which I'll just put on screen. And actually, just at a glance, it looks like only 2 changes from Ibrox. Trusty would come in for Scales, and Engels would start in place of Real Hitati. Would that be enough for you, Brydo? Are they the kind of changes that you would be hopeful of, or do you think there needs to be a few more than that to maybe shake it up a bit?
Yeah, I think there'll be 2 in the back 4, for example. I think McCowan, he didn't look great for the Rangers' third goal, to be honest with you, but he's done enough in other games up till that point. It's difficult to come in a game that we're just not clicking. So McCowan would be in there, Bernardo would drop out. These guys didn't do enough to keep that jersey. Engels got man of the match the game before, but ended up on the bench. But I fully expect him to start. The front 3 is a difficult one, because I feel like they didn't get enough supply, but then the arguments can be made, was there enough movement, and were they doing enough to run in behind, and were they making better angled runs, were they coming to support, did they work hard on the way back, lots of questions whether they did that or not. But it's then difficult because I don't think we've got the same quality. Yang might be an option there when they're looking at that team, but then who would it be? Would it be Kuhn or Maida? Does Ida deserve a bit of a chance to start a game? Is Kyogo not doing enough? I mean, I would probably keep the 3 the same as that team there. with the exception maybe either coming in and deserving of a start or deserving of a start, but he's sitting on the bench a lot. So maybe Ida would come in instead of Kyogo. But the wingers are a problem because we don't have that same quality as those two. So yeah, I would expect maybe a couple more changes to what that team was.
Yeah, just on that then, you think maybe a couple of changes at the back, maybe Trusty and Baye coming in, maybe Baye or Taylor?
Yeah, Baye offers something completely different to Taylor. And by the way, Taylor wasn't anywhere near the worst player. I'm not having a go. I'm not having a real crazy go at him. I think the tactics didn't help, but the way Baye plays, he's able to dribble the ball past the winger, for example. He's very confident. He's dropping a shoulder and he's away. He's got the speed. It messes up Rangers' tactics, for example, because they can't go man for man anymore because you're taking somebody on, and it opens up the space for somebody else has to close them down, and then that's when you can get a bit of joy. Taylor's not got that in his locker. He can't beat a man, and I just think also the angles that he plays, he's far quicker at playing the ball into the middle. I think it's a real problem for Celtic is that the back four players aren't playing the passes quick enough. Now people can argue, is the movement not happening first? Is it the movement issue or is it taking too long to play the pass issue? If it's the pass issue, Scales gets it in the neck. Carter Vickers is the same, by the way. He made a few for me in games. He's not doing it necessarily quick enough. Or is it Hatate and Bernardo in front of them or McGregor? So I think Baye definitely come in and Trusty Trusty's definitely. Scales can't come in. Scales cannot play in the starting 11 after that performance, I'm afraid. They just can't, and neither can Hatate.
Yeah, and I think that's football. I've mentioned the fact that I don't think Rodgers should have made changes in the first half. I think you've got to be careful of that. But you also can't reward such poor performances by giving guys minutes the next time, particularly when there's people waiting, Trusty, Baye and others to come in and take those positions. So there's got to be a meritocracy of sorts, and let's see if the manager plays that out. There's obviously a lot of chat, Brydo, right now, and I just want to touch on it briefly at this time about potential incomings. The chat has ramped up big time about KT. Various big sources, whether it's Fabrizio Romano or Anthony Joseph on Sky Sports, all reporting that talks are ongoing. The suggestion is it might be an initial loan deal till the end of the season, at which point KT becomes a free transfer. So there's lots of talk about that. Bizarrely, there was chat about, obviously his injury record plays a part, but there was a witnessed a debate on Twitter about whether he would improve this Celtic side or not. And it's mind-blowing that anyone thinks KT doesn't make us a better player. If fit, of course. Such a huge talent. I think he's elite level. You cannot play at Arsenal if you're not. And I actually think, if not for injuries, he would have kicked on. So KT's an absolute must for me if we can make it happen. But that aside, Brydo, your quick comments on that, but that aside, where else is our biggest issue for you?
So KT's a no-brainer. For the simple fact, I mean, I've done a bit over 9 seasons there that he's played something like 36 games a season. Now, I know it's not a lot when you compare it to other players, but that is nearly a league season. And I think he was fit for some of them. He just wasn't picked to play. So I don't think it's great, but I don't think it's as bad as everybody makes out to be. They're all different injuries, so he might just find a period of his career where he does get a bit of run in the team and he can maintain it. Remains to be seen, but it's definitely an increase in quality for sure. He can beat a guy with a standing start with his kind of power running, and he can create stuff that certainly Taylor can't do. And defensively, we've all seen him. So he's only 27. We were talking, I hear some people talking about he's like he's 40-year-old, 27 years of age. He might have the hips of a 60-year-old, but he's 27. And if he was to get there on a loan deal, then I would maybe then see Greg Taylor go the other way. I think maybe if he's not signed the contract, Celtic will get some money back or get some money for him and release him in January, and away he goes if Baye stays. And that would improve us. I think you'll lose the reliability of them, Taylor being fit all the time, but you're getting increased quality. So I think Celtic can make that work reasonably easy. It's got to be the winger positions for me. It's we just spoke about it there. I said that in the summer as well. I feel that we need another winger. Forrest is out till February as well. But even with that, Yang, Palmer's is done. Let's be honest, he's not going to play. And I think it's going to be a case of getting people of some real quality to come in and even just give Kuhn a break, give Maida a break without the reduction in quality. And that's also, we're risking them getting injured as well. If not, it would be a real problem area if there were to be injuries. So I would say, without going over the top, certainly in the winger positions, at least one. And certainly if KT was to come back, look at that. I think the longer term issue, though, would be probably in the summer. And I think if we're going to keep playing the way we want to play under that Rodgers style, then he needs to find centre halves that are real ball players as well, which are really, really difficult to find. So I think that's maybe a longer term issue, and we need to address it for sure. But on the whole, I'd say that left back and a winger position would be the two.
Yeah, no arguments there. And just on the ball playing centre half, they are fairly unique in football. They're hard to find, but if this is how we want to play, then that's a challenge. We talk about Paul Tidsdale, who's now in the building, and whatever is going on in terms of the recruitment team. That's your challenge to go and find these guys. And I think we all hoped that Trusty was going to be that guy, and there's glimpses that he might be, but it's certainly not set in stone, and we'll need to see what happens there. Just the other final point I want to make on the left-back situation. Well, I want to say quickly hello to Martin Mitchell. Mitch, Happy New Year. Mitch has also asked when is KT happening, so like you, I'm hoping it's happening in the next 24 hours or so. But in terms of the Greg Taylor situation, I always think that position where a player is entering the final months of his deal, Greg Taylor's next deal is the biggest one of his career, potentially. He needs to look at the move that will set him and his family up for whatever the future brings. And consciously or not, the player is aware that a bad injury at the moment could really put plans up in the air. And I'm not saying Greg Taylor is anything but 100% committed to Celtic, but somewhere in the back of his head, he'll know that if he gets injured this month, it's a disaster for him. And if he picked up an injury that James Forrest has got just now and misses 6 weeks, that's maybe a 6-week window where you don't get that move and teams that were looking at you look elsewhere and all these kind of things. And actually not specific to the Greg Taylor situation, I just mean that kind of situation is difficult because you then end up with a player who's just protecting himself at times, and that's not what Celtic need. You need everyone going in at 100%, full blood and thunder, and giving their absolute all every time. And I just don't think you can expect that of a guy who might be out the building either this month or at the end of the season. It's difficult, and I think it's a situation that Celtic really need to resolve. A few other comments coming in terms of positions folks would like to improve on. Smell the Glove is looking for a number 10 goal-scoring type, and I've suggested we might want to look at that kind of thing. Chris Commons, Tom Rogic type of player. Let me see. Shane O'Sullivan makes a bold comment saying that Virgil van Dijk's out of contract. We could get the old band back together, which would be nice to see. And a few other comments of that out. But we'll need to see, Brydo. But I think there's a real opportunity here at Celtic to strengthen. And I don't want Celtic to bring in 4 or 5 players. I'd far rather 2, 3 at a push, real quality players, and we can see what that brings. Let's see. So, as I mentioned, we've got these kind of various games ahead. It's going to be kind of 4 games. So you've suggested a few changes there. But I do think it's important not to make wholesale changes. Brendan Rodgers could make 11 changes if he wants. Give Solo his debut and do anything else out from there. But you've got to be careful that, there will be knee-jerk reactions from fans, from guys like ourselves in the immediate aftermath, and we'll say this needs to change, that needs to change. The manager works on a system and a process all year round. In fact, he's probably worked on it since the very moment that he returned. So he can't possibly have come into training yesterday or this morning and said, tell you what, guys, everything I said, forget it, we're ripping it up. He needs to be seen to be calm and consistent in his approach, and I think to a huge extent that's what he'll do.
Yeah, I also think the players deserve that. I mean, I think the players deserve the criticism for Thursday, but it can be over the top. It cannot be over the top. I was, my brother, you think I don't like my brother. I care about him very much, but him and his pal, McGregor's been murdered for months, and McGregor's this way. He's a break. Like, come on. Like, we've lost 1 game. And I know he's not necessarily been as influential. I know he's not reached his normal consistency of high performances, but the team itself, the numbers are there for everybody to see. We've got 50 points after 19 games. They're halfway through a league campaign. Is it 50 points, I'm sure? A goal difference of plus 45, I think. It's like, we're in every competition. We're on the cusp of qualifying for the Champions League in that next phase. We've won 1 trophy, and we've been beat twice. And, okay, both defeats were poor. I think, like I said, I don't think the attitude seemed right with the players in that last game in regards to the aggression that they needed to go to Ibrox with no fans. You've got to earn the right to play, and that means you get stuck in and tore in. They wanted it more than we did, and I think that's the hardest thing for Celtic fans to hear and have that reality check, is that that's not good enough. Losing games, yeah, we can deal with that, and if we can't win them all, so if they've won that one and 11 points behind and they celebrate that they've won the Champions League, charge on. It does, okay, have that one. But at the end of the day, we'll win the league and hopefully win the treble, qualify for the Champions League, and away we go. But I think you're right when it comes to the manager. They can't just rip it up and say he doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, that's not true. It's otherwise we wouldn't be where we are at the minute. So I think there's a frustration around the tweaks that he hasn't made or the tweaks that he didn't make after the game at Hampden. It was so glaringly obvious what was going on, how they would play. And he's paid the price because it was a heavy defeat. But going forward, you're right. He's not going to find a system that suits the players as such. The players will need to find that system. If they can't fit in his way, then they'll be out the door and somebody else will come in, or they'll find themselves on the bench for longer. Palmer's a perfectly good example of that. He's not a bad football player, but he can't do what Brendan Rodgers wants him to do in that left wing position when you compare him to Diaz Almeida. It's as simple as that. It's like there. So, and so he'll be away. Listen, he's a calm, experienced manager. He's a high quality manager. He's going to go in, and it'll be a case of, I've been here before, lads. This is what we need to do, and the experienced players will kick on and drag the rest of them with them. And I fully expect us to get a good result tomorrow. I really do. I think, and then I'll get back on it. And what is it they said? Today's papers or tomorrow's chippy wrapper in it. So we should be fine.
I remember Ange talking during his early time at Celtic, and there was all the noise, this won't work here and blah, blah, blah. And he was just, all the haters and all the doubters were there. And there was an interview he gave at the time. I thought it was brilliant. He said, this is the bit he loves. I love it. I love when everyone's questioning what he does, because he knew from his own experience that eventually it comes good. And we all know what happened under Ange for those couple of years. I think Brendan Rodgers is of a similar ilk. Yes, he's got ego. We speak about that a lot. He's extremely confident in what he does and how he does it. But I also think he, to a huge extent, in a similar way, will like the doubt that's been thrown his way right now. There's been a lot of flack online. Some of the journals have come out and kind of gone big on it and stuff, which is absolutely fine. That's just part of the world up here. But Brendan Rodgers reads the papers, as we know. We've seen him have his wee dig at Keith Jackson just the other day before that, in the press conference before the Rangers game. So he's aware of the headlines that are being written and the different things. And he'll be well aware of what's been written in the last 48 hours or so. And I think this, again, is where he comes into his own. I think this is where he steps up, and I think he enjoys this, and he uses these opportunities to galvanise his side. We've seen it last season. At one point, he basically, what was the line, Brydo? We'll write our own story. He came out with that statement at one point after he was getting a lot of flack last season. And I think, from what we know of Brendan Rodgers, from the outside looking in, I think he will have used these last couple of days with the players to really just reset, refocus, regroup, all the things you need to do. And he will be stealing them for the challenges ahead. There's a couple of comments coming in just now. Colin Rodgers makes a very valid point that the young boys is the biggest game that we'll face in January. Disappointing as it was on Thursday, and it was really disappointing. There's a bigger picture at play here. And if Celtic can bounce back, starting tomorrow, put in a good performance, get a good result, and then kick on, and then get to the young boys game, which is the 22nd, and put in a big performance and get a big result, very quickly the anger and frustration that you feel from Ibrox dissipates. You forget all about that. And I think Brendan Rodgers, one of his big talents is man management and how he speaks to the group. And I think he'll be resetting his players for what lies in store, and making sure that they feel the pain of Thursday, but also can look with fresh eyes at the bigger picture. But I'll come to you in just 1 second for your scoreline prediction. Before I do so, I'd like to ask anyone watching on the live and in the comments to bring us their scoreline predictions. We all got it wrong, and then some at Ibrox. What was that? I think I was 3-0. 3-0 and Yankee score last. That didn't quite work out for me. It was 4-1s, 5-1s, all these kind of things. But that's the way it goes. Some you get, some you don't. So let us know what you think in the comments. Any scoreline predictions ahead of this one. But Brydo, to yourself then, your scoreline prediction against St Mirren and your reasons why.
I'm going to say a very resurgent 4-0 win. I know somebody said it would be a tough, stuffy game. I just think, I think Celtic will come out the traps. And a decent side, St Mirren, but I think we'll just blow them away with the energy that perhaps to prove a point that we do know how to play, and we can play at a level that nobody can touch us. So I think the changes that he makes will be imperative to that scoreline being close, and the players that get the jersey, they know there's big games coming up, and Champions League, things like that. So I think it's a chance for players to kind of show us that it's just it's a blip. Every season's got them, it happens. But the most important thing is really what we do next. And what we do next is go out and get a good performance. And I think that's what we'll see. There's no reason to tell me that won't happen. There's no reason why it won't. It's happened. We've averaged 3.1 goals or something like this season, or something, each game or something like that. Like some crazy stat where there's no reason why we don't go and do that. And there's no reason why St Mirren, who have lost the last two, are going to come and in fact, I lost against Kelly. They lost against Kelly and Dundee or something. So they might have won their last game, but they lost 2 after they beaten Rangers. So yeah, I just think Celtic got to show their quality, their power, their strength, their pace, and go out and just batter them. And again, just almost calm it all down. To anybody that isn't calm, I'm reasonably calm about it because of what we've seen before. I'm fully expecting that's what we'll see going forward.
You're a calm man at the best of times, Brydo, so I like your perspective on it. You're absolutely right, though. St Mirren beat Rangers 2-1, as we all know, on Boxing Day. Then they lost their next game at home, 2-1 to Dundee. Then they lost 2-0 at Kilmarnock. So, as you said earlier on, a massive win for them. You could see they were buzzing with it, but they've kind of undone that good work. And they'll have a focus, they'll have a resilience under Stevie Robinson, but they won't really, in their heart of hearts, be expecting to come and pick up points at Celtic Park. That said, they might see the wounded animal thing going on, but actually that could be the worst possible time to get Celtic. There's a few other scorelines coming in. Gypsy King thinks it'll be a tough game and a stuffy 2-1 Celtic. Mazar, professional performance 2-0 to kickstart a run of wins across the new year. Smell the glove, 3-0, nervy first half, better second half, let's see. And finally, Shane O'Sullivan, he's gone 4-1. He's even named the scorers, Brydo. Hatate, Kyogo, Luke McCowan and Ida. I think 2-0, I'm on side with Mazar. I think we'll be there or thereabouts. And I just think it's important, however way we do it, get the win first and foremost. But performance is important, Brydo. I think if it was an edgy or a nervy game all round and it was still 1-0 going into the last 10, not particularly good for confidence. But I think the big plus is that when you bring in new players, whether it's a Luke McCowan or an Adam Ida or Yang or any of these guys, they've spent a lot of time on the bench. And opportunities don't come around all the time at Celtic, and I think it allows these guys to come in and show what they've got against in front of a home crowd, against a team that you should be winning against. And I think that could see Celtic kick back into life. They'll need to, Brydo. There's no other choice. In all these situations, defeats will happen in football, but the big thing is how you respond. So, Brydo, your final thoughts, as I say, it's the first home game of the new year, first time back at Celtic Park, so that's always something to look forward to. So your final thoughts ahead of this one?
Yeah, I think it's just a case in getting back to what our perceived normality is, and that is winning games of football, playing a certain way that excites the fans, and getting the results when we need them. It's a big enough game because of the performance and the result on Thursday, but in the grand scheme of everything that we've seen this season so far and what's to come, I fully expect it'll be a 3 points and some performances that make us kind of go, wait a minute, maybe the players that started on Thursday aren't the best players to play. And I think it hopefully brings us more answers than questions, to be honest, because we've got so many question marks over Thursday. And if not, just get the balaclava on and that, just put the green stuff, just get yourself, and we'll get down to Celtic Park, we start firing fireworks and smashing barriers off cars.
Here's hoping we don't have to take those options, Brydo, but you never know. It's always good to get back to Celtic Park. It's an opportunity to right some of the wrongs. Winning comfortably and confidently against St Mirren won't undo all that happened at Ibrox. Far from it. But all you can do is play your next game and play it well, and that's the hope. Brydo, thanks for joining us here on Saturday. Definitely been mixing up the days, but thanks for joining us here for this one. Thanks to everyone who continues to join us on the live, to make your comments and to support what we do here at the Celtic Exchange. If you do want to support us further across 2025, and there's links in the show notes that explain how you can do so. But in the meantime, enjoy your rest of your weekend. Hopefully a big performance to kickstart 2025 tomorrow at Celtic Park. We'll see you all again soon.